All right, welcome to another episode of Stories from the Sidelines, a podcast coming out of the media gang from myself, Rob Moore, Flackhouse Photos, and my co-host Sam Bennett, all in media. We're super happy to have a good friend of mine from the Northeast, John Christ, currently a coach of Wolfpack, to hop on with us. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and your busy week. I know that you're a teacher and got a lot of things going on.
Things are ending, thank God.
Yeah, things are
yeah,
ending.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's gonna
I'm
be
so happy to be here too. Yeah.
awesome, awesome. And before we kind of dive into things, with the passing of Tim Montressor, we would like to take a brief moment of silence for him. Okay, yeah. Thank you, Tim, for everything that you've done between playing and being an ambassador to the sport and bringing ICC to what it is. But as much as I love Tim, we're here to talk about you, John. I mean, I've known you for a little while. I've seen you play on Lyft before, and I know you've probably played on a bunch of other teams and whatnot. And now you play with Wolfpack, but you mainly coach with them.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the first thing I really want to ask you is like, how did you get into coaching, or like what really brought you to go from being a player and transitioning into becoming a coach?
The best part about it is that it was almost necessity, and not really with Wolfpack guys. Really, towards the end of Lyft, a good thing about the semi-pro or Division One part of the league is that you really started to need that coach position. And we were finding that we had a lot of talent on Lyft, but unorganized talent is going to beat, is not going to beat organized talent. And it got really, really, really tight towards the top of that division. And we found ourselves falling further and further away from the top. And a lot of that was because, there was a couple of talking heads and great players that would sort of have say and input on what we were going to do each point, then have to go out there and execute that. So, the position of the coach is really, you're looking at the game while it's being played and you're deciding, maybe not even 1 point, but 2 points, 3 points, the whole match ahead. And you certainly can't do that while you're playing. So we had a couple people filter in and out as coaches. Todd Martinez, who was a great friend of mine and helped me a lot. He allowed me to kind of help him out when he was with Vicious and then moving forward a little bit. And I really got to learn sort of what to do when you're standing there with that layout, and not just to be like, okay, you should hear, go. How to receive feedback, how to give feedback, and how to, push the game forward and make those tough decisions, when to pull the towel, when not to pull the towel, which is way harder to understand than when to pull the towel and get a point. It's harder to say, no, we have to let this play out because of whatever part of the match it is or what have you. So, Lyft and Wolfpack are really very similar because it's friends. It's a group of guys that are as close as brothers, friends, whatever cliche you want to use, it's true. But that was the piece that we didn't have. We didn't have somebody to sort of, pull the strings while we were playing. Myself and a couple of the other guys always handled the sort of sponsorship and like liaison pieces of it. But when it came down to it, when you've traveled, first of all, you put all that money into practice, right? Then you put all that money into travel. Now you're at the event and you're just going to go out and roll the dice. Like, it just became to a point where something had to change. And that thing was that we needed some leadership. And, it's unfortunate kind of what happened with Lyft. We sort of, everybody grew up a little bit and people couldn't put the time into practice. And we had a lot of our stuff paid for. We had a better deal than, some pro teams through different people that were kicking in money towards it. One of the players, Dylan Kelly, his dad, paid for a couple of the events out of his pocket, which was amazing, And we always had, Tom Martinez actually helped us out a lot with our paint when he was with Golden State. And, obviously our jerseys and things like that. And, we had a great thing going. But the problem is that there's only so long you can just go and participate instead of going to compete. And that's what it started to become. We were just going there to participate. We played paintball because that's what we did. When that ended, I was like in limbo. And to be perfectly honest with you, I played 7-man with the New York Dogs and with a team called Wired, and we did pretty well. And then the ProPaintball.com, I was very involved with that with the Masons. In the very beginning, there was the Edge, and that kind of the East Coast version of that is what became Lift. And those guys are my friends that I'll have forever. They're like brothers to me. Justin, Brandon, Wojo, all those guys. And we would go out to California and play 7-man with and against them. And then the Pro Paintball would sponsor our 7-man team, and we got a couple trophies doing that as well. But then, 7-man died a slow and painful and pretty embarrassing death.
That's a little tough.
Yeah, pretty much. There was an event this past weekend that was a 7-man event.
Yeah, Pro Tour.
Cool. I heard really good things about it too.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I look forward to it. I love 7-man. So there's so many people around. Long Island's got a lot of paintball teams and a lot of paintball being played, and some of the best paintball players around. We don't all get along so hot. So, Chris has been a friend of mine for a long time, and Ian as well. And a lot of the guys that were on Wolfpack, it was always fun playing those guys. Joey had guested with them a couple times as well. And I reached out to Jeremy, and, truth be told, I was just embarrassed for myself to call and be like, hey guys, can I come play with you? So I reached out to Jeremy, who then reached out, told me, yeah, come out. Initially, Jamie Ilzel was coaching them, and I came out to a couple practices and then wound up going to it was Texas with them and played a little bit there and, sort of got my feet wet with the guys and stuff like that. And then, Jamie was transitioning into a new job and moving and stuff. And by the second event, I sort of took the reins as the coach, and we had some it was like lightning in a bottle. We had some success like right away. Every event we were going to Sunday, we lost a bunch of overtime games, twice to the ML Kings to put us out of the tournament in the first round of the playoffs. And I really, really sort of immersed myself in the coaching aspect of it. And I try to help, a lot of the local teams and stuff like that. But it's really interesting when you start to take yourself out of the mode of, man, I hope I get some spins, to what can I do with these players so that we can build ourselves a comfortable enough lead to not only win, that maybe then I'll get a spin or two. Cause that's like with the guys, that's like our agreement, like if we get up by 3-4 points, like I get to go in and play and stuff like that. And, the guys, I certainly could play otherwise. And especially in the beginning of this whole thing, it was like, hey, well, why don't you go play? It's more important, especially at our division, to have a coach and a dedicated coach, and a coach that's, and when I say dedicated, I don't mean about like, dedication. I mean, that's your job. You're there, you're looking, this is what you're doing. It's X's and O's. You're trying to figure out what's going on with the other teams and put the best game plan out there that there is. I love it. It's really cool. Again, Todd's helped me so much with sort of how to be a coach and some things to do and like how to keep your head and try to keep calm. Cause I as you guys know, I'm a hothead, and, I've really tried to keep that. Yeah, a little bit. Right. Yeah. I really try to keep that sort of focused when, when I'm coaching, when we're in the pit, because the coach can't be the guy that sets the fire off, that takes you out of the game. You certainly want to feed off the energy of the team, but you can't be the reason why everybody starts to get upset and lose their head, and especially like a team like ours, we run off emotion and we're a big risk reward team. There's guys that on this team that really can literally take over a game at any point they want. And, with a little bit of leadership, and it's more that they don't have to worry about it. A big thing that I know that they'll, a lot of my guys hear me say a lot is, please let it be my fault. When we make a game plan up, let it be my fault that it didn't work. But when you go out there and, there's a game plan and we think it's going to work or whatever, and you deviate and you do something completely different, now it's not my fault anymore. You just kind of went out there and did what you were going to do. And if you were doing maybe what the game plan was, that would have been my fault. But now it's harder to break down where the problem was because there was something different. You know what I mean? That happened that was expected. So
no, that makes a ton of sense. Like it comes to understanding your variables. Like if you, I've put people in certain positions doing certain jobs, and then I can understand the outcome of what happens, whether it's good or it's bad. I understand of what was going on in my head to then decide what we're going to be doing next or for the rest of the match. And as soon as you add more variables and things that wasn't originally planned, you can't make the adjustments needed because it's something different.
Yeah.
So,
And you know what, another lesson that I had to learn was that, I do have some paintball knowledge for sure. And this really goes with when other folks, like a lot of times, like some of the Division 3 or even lower teams will sort of approach me like, hey, could you coach us when you're not helping Wolfpack or what have you? And initially I was all over it. I was like, yeah, I'm going to coach you. I'm going to help you. Rah, rah, rah.
yeah.
I don't know those guys. I might know them as people, but I don't know them as players like I know my guys. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So then what works for us is not going to be what works for them.
Yeah.
A big part of coaching, at least the way I do it and in our division, is sort of for me to play a little bit and understand, oh, I made a mistake. I can't look this way because this guy can shoot me, or I can't, look this way because this guy will. So, and, the guys are really cool about that. And that's why, I usually don't play in the practice before the event, the weekend before the event. But I play the whole time the first layout weekend because it really helps me a lot to figure out where to shoot, what to shoot. I think it's easier too because I was a back player and trying to understand where the lanes are going to be and trying to have my front players sort of be aware of those things and be able to avoid them or go somewhere where they can shoot back at that person or what have you.
That's nice. That's it's not something I see a lot of coaches doing, is playing themselves.
Well, I don't know. I don't know that it's a thing that a lot of the coaches are sort of way out of it. And I'm like, I'm one of those old guys holding on for dear life.
It's definitely good that you do though, because instead of having to ask what happened, what happens back there. So that definitely gives a different perspective that other coaches might not be able to get. Because sometimes, I'm sure you've had it. What happened? I have no clue. I just got shot.
I don't know. It's the hardest thing to do is to overcome the lack of feedback. Straza is really good about telling the whole team. I'll be like, hey, he needs feedback. You got to tell him what's up. And, Chris will come off sometimes. And if a point doesn't go so well, he's not the happiest guy in the world when that happens, especially, if he, thinks that he could have avoided that point going poorly by some way. And he'll come in and immediately give me some feedback. And even if he's not able to so if he's mad or he's not able to give feedback right away, he'll take that time to get that out and get, be upset or whatever. And then he always comes up to me and says, hey, this is what's happening. Here's what I'm seeing. And it just makes my job a lot harder. Same thing with Ian, really the same thing with all the guys. Like they'll come right over to me and let me know what's going on, It's funny because it's so hard for me. I'm in practice at Battle Creek. Most of the time you'll catch me standing by the snake side. Yeah. It's something that I'm actually going to be working with myself to break myself up because I can't do that at the event. I'm on the Dorito side. And even little things like that, it makes a big difference. My perspective should be sort of from between Dorito 1 and Dorito 2, because that's where you usually are in the pit. And little things like that, that's me working on my game as a coach, trying to be in that corner, the same place I would be to see what's going on at an event.
No, that makes a ton of sense. And it's like what Michael Jordan said. He's just like, practice as how you actually play. So if you that's where you're going to be, why not? Yeah, that's what you should be doing.
Yeah.
It makes the transition much easier because you're never going to have that bird's eye view. And don't get me wrong, being able to have that bird's eye view, especially
it's awesome.
Late weekend one of LA, it's like you're able to see everything. If you're able to gain a little bit more information earlier on, but as soon as you start getting closer and closer to the event or even the practice at the event, it's like, hey, this is where I need to be. I can't be on the field trying to guide people along. I need to practice how I will actually play the event.
Well, as players progress throughout their careers also, they're more, how do I say it gently, forthcoming with what happens on the field, right? Yeah. So when you're in D4 or D3, or even worse, when you first get on sort of a different team than you were on and it's a higher level team, you get shot. I would say you guys all play 90% of the time, how and where you got shot from. And 90% probably is a low number. It's probably more like 98%, right? But how many times? I don't know. I don't know what happened. I don't know. I have no idea where it came from. It was a stray ball. I don't know, and that's that lack of confidence in you having ownership. When I played in Canada, Rusty was our coach. And I learned a lot from Rusty as well. One of the things you notice about Rusty is that if a guy on Dynasty gets a penalty or has a really poor point or maybe gets shot off the break or something, like Tyler Harmon's a great example because he's so risk-reward, that type of player. He puts him right back out almost every time. And, he told me, I asked him about it. He told me, he's like, I can't have you sitting in the pit thinking about the penalty you just got or thinking about the way you ran to the Dorito that you got shot there. I want you to have such a short-term memory that you don't have time to worry about that. And you just erase it the next time out. So, you'll see a lot of times, like, there's two schools of thought. There's, hey, you got a penalty. Now you should, quote unquote, be punished for it and sit the next point. And, I had a long conversation with him about that. And he's like, I don't really subscribe to that. He goes, it works for some people. He's like, but for me, I would rather force my players to have short-term memory by creating a new memory right away because they had to go out and do it again, right? So,
Yeah, sounds like golf.
Yeah, which is I just got in from today and it was a nightmare. So I can't say golf. It was great on the back nine. The front nine was a nightmare.
I mean, it's always like that. I mean,
the best thing about golf is that it's the only sport you get better tan lines than paintball. So, so you got two hands, right? So you got that one and then you got this one. And you can't see as well on the camera, but this one's way darker than this.
You can see
it.
Yeah.
Oh, you can see it. Yeah, you can see
where your bracelets are.
Yeah.
I got the same tan.
Yeah. Little golf club. Yeah. But the coaching aspect, like I picked up a lot of things. I've been very lucky to have exposure to, Todd and Rusty and watching them, and what they do. And like both of those guys, and it's funny because they both, have very similar beginnings, right? Both of those guys are very willing to help and very willing to teach. Todd came and coached Lift for, I think, at two separate events. One was a World Cup where we had a bunch of ties. The other one was a Chicago event where I think we moved on to the second round. He came in the pit and he was able to help us. Rusty coaches all the events that Recon would go to, and when the CXBL was still around. And then I played a couple OPL events with him too. He's a great coach and an open book, and he is aware that, not only I was there to play in the moment, but then after, the tournaments were over, we would always chat about coaching because he knew that, I coach a semi-pro team and I would just try to be a sponge and pick up as much as I can off of those guys. So,
yeah, I mean, it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you have a lot of influences. Would you say that Rusty and Todd have really helped shape and mold your coaching style if you do have one? Or, I mean, are you trying to, I mean, you're a sports person. Like, do you look at other sports and other coaches in these professional fields and try to mimic what they do?
Well, not so much in the professional fields, but I was lucky enough that I went to school on a full scholarship for lacrosse and did pretty well and all that stuff. And I had a coach there who had a big impact on my life. And it's funny, he would never make it in paintball because he was such a no nonsense guy. Like just if he cared about you, he showed it by just riding you constantly and yelling at you and screaming at you and telling you suck, basically. And that doesn't necessarily work especially with my friends. You know what I mean? Like our group, that's not really the motivation for it. But he was an incredibly cerebral guy. And, Todd and I are very alike in that Todd's a hothead. And I don't think he'd get upset if he sees this and hears that, but it comes from that passion. And it comes from, and for Todd, it's certainly different than myself. He's got a closet full of trophies, man, at the highest level you can possibly play at. But he wants these young men to, give him everything they've got every point. But more than just every point, it's scouting games in between your matches, arriving to the field on time, making sure that you practice properly. All of those things, making sure your equipment works. Rusty is, in my opinion, is really an X's and O's guy. And Rusty's always like 2 points ahead of what's going on. That's what I've always found. He's got his binder and he's constantly and he has several plays that are like sort of mapped out that he knows is going to work. I think, sometimes he'll script the first couple of plays. I've really been able to pick up a lot off of those guys. And really though, the thing that influences me the most to coach, and I've done way more coaching with Wolfpack than with Lift. I play, I was primarily a player on Lift until the very end. These guys will do anything I tell them. And, when you look at some of the last names on our team, Straza, Wilson, Todd Skelton, Murray, Murray's not playing as much. Even Kyle's been playing at this level for a long time, and he's an absolute killer.
I mean, Bartlestone. I mean, he's playing on Predators and stuff.
Bartles, you've got, and there's so many more guys that you throw in the mix. Jeremy, I played with Jeremy on 3 or 4 different teams. They put so much faith in me and so much trust in me. It's a heavy burden, to be perfectly honest with you. But they will do, if I'm like, hey, it would be great if we could run this to the 40 Dorito right now. And Kyle would be like, okay. I'm like, yeah, but if you could run backwards, it would be better than running forwards. And like, and you know how me and Kyle can get sometimes. We worked on our relationship a lot, and like I have a great relationship with him. I think we didn't understand each other in the beginning. That dude, if I tell him to run the Dorito backwards, he'll run the Dorito backwards. Probably make it too. But those guys give me that trust. And that's why, I'm always like, hey, let it be my fault. And they buy into that. And it's really, dude, it's freaking awesome to see. And there are some guys, I have no business telling, Ian what to do. Flat out. That guy played at the highest level. His acts single-handedly beat our chaos. It's one of those things that like, he understands the importance of having the coach. He understands the importance of taking the burden off of him. Same thing with Chris, man. Like if we talk about where to shoot off the break, I know, he showed me so much respect when we played against each other. He shows me respect when we play together. And I feel like, we'll talk about where he should shoot. And sometimes I'll have an idea like, hey, you should shoot wide for this guy, blah, blah, blah. And he'll be like, well, don't you think I should shoot over here? And I'm like, that's a fucking great point. Yes, you should. And having that open dialogue instead of him just clamming up and being like, well, I'll do what this coach says, even though it's stupid. He doesn't, and he's not disrespectful about it. He's not anything else like that. He's like, yeah, well, what if I shoot over here? Bartles is very much like that too. Bartles is an idiot.
Yes.
But he's the best idiot ever, and he has such a head for the game. He's got such high paintball IQ, and he's really such a good person. Don't let him know that I said that. Hopefully he doesn't have any technology and won't watch this anyway.
No, not a chance. He's probably hanging out with Pinky doing
100%. Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about this dialogue between players and coaches, and I definitely can see. I mean, it's happened to me. I've been a fault of. I don't want to say talking back, but having that dialogue is. You're saying to do this, and just like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Like whatever you say, and I'm just gonna listen to you. And I definitely see a lot of lower divisional teams kind of fall into that rhythm. So, why do you think that is? Is it a lack of confidence and they just don't have enough experience, or is it that you're personally working with players that have played at the highest level or been around the block within semi-pro for so long, and that they can have that conversation?
Well, it's interesting. It goes back to what I was talking about, how you can't go like I had to really learn that like I am Wolfpack's coach. I know those guys. I know their strengths. I know their weaknesses. I know little nuances that, other people don't know about them. When you go bring, and Rob, I know you've had experience with this, when you bring somebody from the outside in, or you join someone else's team, especially when you join someone else's team with a bunch of guys that you've played with already and you have chemistry with, if there isn't a back and forth, then you're constantly, and depending upon that person's personality, and Rob, for you, I'm thinking of one very particular situation.
Yes.
I know
what you're talking about.
If that person's personality is if they're going to take it personally that you don't agree with them, it's not going to work out. And it's not that that's wrong, but it takes time to get over that. So a lot of people are like, hey, we'll just go out and get a coach and then we'll do well. There's semi-pro teams that are at the top, that are trying to take that next step, and they've brought in coaches, and there's no chemistry between the players and the coach. There's chemistry between the players, but the coach is on a different, page. There are some teams in our division that you don't know whether they're going to bunker you or actually stab you, like with a knife. And it's their strength. And you can't sort of stifle that, because that's the way they play with their heart on their sleeve. That was the way Lift was very much in the beginning. We literally wanted to shoot people into the dirt, and we weren't finished until we did that. Like if there's 5 guys on the field alive, we know that an overshooting penalty is probably going to take 2 bodies off. We can close it with 3. We were okay with that. You know what I mean? And that's not necessarily right. But if you have a team that's in their DNA, especially if you're new coming to them, you can't break that and try to be like, oh, hey, listen, I made that mistake. I tried to do that with Lyft. We were going to be the good guys and like help everybody out and ref everything and coach people and do this. And we literally clipped our wings, and it was a mistake. I diverted a little bit, but what I think is that it's that time. It takes time. The other thing too is that a lot of times you see, especially lower division teams, they bring in like someone's dad or someone who isn't really a paintball person or player. And they try to coach at that level. At those lower levels, you can make a lot of mistakes and still win on pure talent, especially when you see a talented lower division team with someone who, again, was one of the players' dads, who doesn't really have real experience. in the back of a lot of those guys' heads, they don't trust this person because he's never been, trying to get an angle on someone in a tiny little Dorito while 3 other guys are shooting at him, And I think that's where that little piece of doubt creeps into your head, right? And it hurts. It hurts the whole process. And you have to have buy-in. That's a big thing. Whenever a team comes back and really underperforms, the first thing I look at when it happens to us is hey, what was the buy-in here? What were, when we went to the field, did we get there, an hour beforehand, have to do everything? Did we get there 2 hours ahead of time, check in, get all our stuff ready, be organized, be in the pit, be ready, maybe watch some games first, depending upon, we usually get the damn 7 a.m. games. So no games before us.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
I've always had the 7 a.m. games.
But then what you do afterwards, did everybody scatter? Did you stay together? Did you talk about the day? Did you not have to talk about the day and then forced it? That's another big mistake. When you have a day that you've been very successful, you don't have to spend 10 hours breaking down every little thing you did. You have to understand that, hey, we came here, we accomplished our goals for this first day. Hopefully we've scouted the teams that we're going to play the next day. Let's talk about them a little bit. Let's figure out what time we're going to get to the field, if we can see those teams before or what have you. And then, you go have fun or go get to sleep, or depending on what time it is, or, go get a meal or whatever. Those little things are huge and they're so important. The other part of it is the money piece, right? Do you pay a coach? Does the coach pay a share? If the coach is a player, is he a player coach? He pays a full share. What is he doing? That, our team, we're a little bit, we're old fogies now. We are these guys. I've known them for so long, and I'm, about 10 years older than almost everybody. And I've known all these guys since they were basically in high school. And they're not now. They have kids, they have houses, they have, mortgages they have to pay, whatever. And it's a little bit of a different vibe. So the money piece, although nobody's got money growing out of trees, the money piece is a little bit different. I pay a full share, the guys pay a full share, and we all own it. Whatever Wolfpack does, we own it as a collective group. It's one of those things. And then your coach has to have somebody or 1 or 2 people to help him or her,
Yeah.
I rely a lot on guys like Joey, Bartles, Ian, Jeremy. Those guys are able to take themselves out of the moment and really help out a lot. Sometimes, other guys get really, really invested in their craft and what they're doing at that time. And I try to not, I don't gravitate towards those guys to, in the moment. After we're done, everybody gives feedback and that's different. But your coach has to know who can come out of that moment for a second and talk to you as an observer as well. Because, you always get conflicting reports of what happened on the field, and that's normal. If I'm in a Dorito corner and you're in a snake corner, we see different things.
Yeah.
They're similar, but it's from a different perspective. So, you have to rely on all of those different perspectives as well. And my job is to sort them out and figure out, okay, I get it why he saw that. A lot of times when guys come off the field, I have questions. Hey, did you know that blah, blah, blah? Did you know that Kyle was on their side? Oh, you did? Okay, good. Did you know that if you wrap that bunker, you can shoot the home? Okay, great. Those little things. And then we start talking about what we're going to do next.
Right. So inside of there was a lot to comprehend there, but inside of there, at some point you talked about bringing other people on, them not having the same relationship. Right. What we wanted to know is, as a coach, what are some non-technical skills you look for? Everyone wants to play for Wolfpack. They're just one of those teams that, you see them, you're like, wow, that they look like they're fun to play with. They're cool. They're winning. Stuff like that. So besides the obvious, snap shooting, they can communicate. Right. What are you looking for as far as
the intangibles?
Yeah.
So and Rob, you're going to laugh a lot. Punctuality.
What, really? Punctuality. It's like one player on the team.
Yeah, and it's Joe, not me.
Yeah. And it's because you're riding with him.
Yeah, exactly. I'm on time because I'm with Joe.
Yeah. Or Straza, because he owns the field.
Right,
and he has to get there before everybody else.
Right. But no, that's sort of, again, it's intangible is a great word for it, but punctuality goes right along with dedication, right? Not being a shitty person. That's important too. Fair. There's a lot of people in paintball that put on the charade of I'm a good person. But deep down inside, that might not be the case. And that's okay. it's just not okay with our team. It's very important that we can be friends as well. That's the DNA of this team. It's funny because I would liken our team similar to a team like Dynasty, or like even maybe the VCK guys were a great example. They're so close and such great friends, and they happen to be really good players as well. And I feel like there's a lot of that sort of DNA in our team. And when we bring someone onto our team, like Joe's a great example, right?
Yeah.
Joe was on this team from the day he hurt his knee, which was like 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, flat out. There were no questions asked. It was because of his character. Forget about the fact that Joey could shoot like the wings off a fly. Like, he's so good,
Mm-hmm.
His character is as such that he cares very deeply about what happens with the team, with his teammates, on the field, off the field, all that stuff that, as soon as he was ready, he was going to be on Wolfpack. And for me to say that, he was on Lyft, and it was just one of those things that, like, I think Joey saw what was going on with our team, and that it was sort of a steady decline in performance due to people not being able to put the full energy into what they needed to do. And when he was ready to come back, it was open arms for wherever he went. But that's because Joe possesses every one of those things. Almost everybody in paintball has followed Joe's journey, and the training, the countless of hours training and setbacks and all of these things. And, you look at him, he's there Saturday, he's there Sunday, he's working on his game. He's hilarious. He's having a good time. He's laughing. And, if a bunker doesn't have air in it, who's walking over with the blower? Joey. He doesn't say like, hey, you peasants, like, you got to fill up the field. He does it himself, because he gives a shit. And that's important. I would say that's it. I would say, Sam, to answer your question, giving a shit is the biggest thing. And not being a shitty person.
Yeah.
Communication is the biggest thing. Being able to communicate on the field is like, I feel like the people on our team are where we're at. We can teach you. If you're not as technically skilled, but you can communicate and you have speed, you can't teach speed. Anybody who's got crazy speed is like, oh my God, it's like the best thing ever. You can't teach those things, but we can teach you to play this game. There's so many years and so much success on our team. And I'm not saying me as the coach can teach you, but, guys like Ian, we have little Josh on our team.
Yeah.
And he was rostered for Vegas.
Yeah.
And
I took pictures of him at Vegas.
Yeah. That's right. And that sort of came about as like, well, if he's going to be there, we could put him as a staff, whatever, but we're kind of shorthanded and like, we'll just roster him. And he wound up playing 3 points or so. One of them, he closed out a 2-on-2 with Kyle. And, it's pretty awesome. Yeah. The other thing too is that you have to be sort of a good fit personality wise with everyone, not just with some people, and we are, a quirky bunch. We got, Strauss is very focused and very serious about, like, he wants to go as far as he can go. Right.
Yeah.
And then you have people like Zap who dresses like a dinosaur, like, I don't even know. And,
Yes.
But both of them, are all in as far as this goes. Zap is such a great ambassador for the game itself. And, having him on our team, Zap's a great example of why you can't play and coach. Zap's a good player. But he always had to coach the guys on the battles or whoever else he was playing with.
Mm-hmm.
He took that role on kind of similar to what I always do, to organize everything and, sometimes pay for everything and like do all of that stuff. And it takes away from your ability to play. Once he came onto our team, and, Zap does help out with a lot of stuff for sure. But he's able to focus on, and I constantly remind him, hey man, you're a player, just worry about playing. He does a great job when we send him up the middle. Like, he's become so much more disciplined and it's good. As a player, he really grew a lot over the last couple of years. So.
No, yeah, I've definitely seen that from him. And like, I've known Zap for a little while. Like, I went to Temple, he went to Drexel, like, knew him when he was still at Playground and stuff, saw him build up like Princeton battles, which was like, it was almost like 40 guys. Like,
yeah, it was crazy.
It was crazy how he built this organization in Central New Jersey. But I definitely saw that it kind of sucked the life out of him.
It does. It's hard. It's incredibly hard. It really, I can't tell you, like, if you go down to my basement, there's banners. There's all these lift banners up everywhere because, every time you get jersey, you get a banner and what have you. And they're all over my basement. And then there's the area where there's trophies and stuff like that. And like, that's years of my life. And like, I wouldn't trade it for the world, but it takes a big toll on you, and it's like, and then, my wife is a goddamn saint. And, it takes a toll on all aspects. There are times when, if you're in charge and, guys on your team are like, and they're all good for it, they're like, listen, I need another week for entry or whatever the deal is, that, goes on your credit card. Or maybe you made an agreement with the field. This happened to us as well. We made an agreement with the field that they were going to pay a certain amount and they decided not to. I made that arrangement, so I shouldered the burden of it. And it's tough. It's hard. It's really, to run one of these teams, especially if you're trying to compete in a high division, it's tough. It's really tough. Yeah.
So, I mean, you have a background with running an organization like as Lyft. Lyft was what, 3-4 teams, right? All playing nationally.
There was like, there was us, there was the main team, if you will. And then we had Lyft kids first. So like, there was like a 5-man type team situation that was always happening. And then the D3 guys came along and they were guys that were on like neighboring, like local teams that were very loaded with talent, and a lot of those guys, some guys went on to the Bears, other guys played with us on Lyft, and, still other guys did other things. Pat Kraft was on Lyft Kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's when you think about
he
it.
played with Robbie Griffith. I remember it. Yeah. Kevin Klein.
Kevin Kinley.
Yeah, I always butcher his last name. I always feel bad.
So Kevin, it's interesting. And I just, I guess I got to give it a shout out or whatever. Roger is Kevin's dad. And, everybody knows Roger in paintball. Roger started the Naughty Leps, and he's really the guy who brought me to X-Ball. I used to pit for those guys. And my first X-Ball event, I played 3 points with not being on their roster. I was just their pit crew, but it was the Wild West back then,
Yeah.
And Roger gave me a shot, and we had a place called Paintball Arena that was, John Pino and Anthony Pino gave us, such an experience that we were able to grow into the sport. And Roger used to come down almost every night, and he would have us out there doing, myself, Murray, Todd. We all came up with him, and he really sort of taught us a lot about the game. And, I never expected to get this deep into this game. I thought it was going to
Nobody ever does.
I blew my knee out. And after I got it fixed, I had this gift card to Sports Authority, I think is where it was. And I bought a paintball gun and went down to, I think I went in the phone book because it was so long ago, who knows? And I found where
book.
Exactly. And I found where paintball.
It's the yellow pages. It's the yellow pages.
The one people hit people with. Yeah.
Yeah.
I went down to Paintball Arena. I found it, and I walked in there, and I wasn't 10 years old. I was a 28-year-old adult with a job. So the guys that were playing tournaments were like, "Why do you have that weird Tippmann gun? Here, use this. Lend me a Timmy." And we were like, "Hey, we travel around doing this. Like, do you want to, And basically for them, it was like, "Hey, somebody who's financially stable who we can teach." And man, I got hooked so hard and so fast. And
that's how it is. That's how it always is.
It's pretty nuts.
I mean, to kind of go back to where I was leading to for a question, like you ran like a pretty decent sized organization with Lyft. I mean, Straza and Ian with Wolfpack. I mean, the whole Wolfpack divisional program was huge for a couple of years. I mean, has there been a thought of reconstructing a Wolfpack divisional program or like a Battle Creek feeder team? Because definitely I saw, I mean, I wasn't going to national events at the time, but I'm friends with Mines. I'm friends with Land. I'm friends with like all those guys that were on those Wolfpack teams. And there's just so much camaraderie that going to events was different. And I could definitely say like what Sam and I and like some of the media guys are doing with Media Gang, it's like a revitalization of Photo Mob.
Yeah.
And
it is. Wow. I didn't even consider that. I remember that. That's wild.
Yeah. So has that been a thought with yourself and trying to put in the structure for teams? I know what you said is like, it's tough to coach other teams because you don't know the nuances, but potentially helping find a coach and setting that all up.
Yeah. I mean, Chris talks about it all the time. I think he's a little bit overwhelmed with success. It's tough. It's hard to run a business. And then it's even harder when your business is successful because he's got a certain amount of, he's got to live up to the hype too, we don't take it lightly that we feel our field is the best field, around. And he's, so invested in keeping it there and making sure that he improves it that it's, in my opinion, it's tough. We talk about it all the time. We tried to do it initially. I mean, I do think it is going to come back. We do try to treat basically super fast and, the brave guys and we try to keep those guys and make sure that those guys continue to improve because that's the future of the teams on the, at that field. And those guys have had a lot of success already. I could see, it is such a shame that guys like Mines and Sweetwood and Landa and everybody, there isn't sort of that the Ducks thing didn't work out basically because the Ducks were that other piece of it as well, I'm hoping that comes back sometime. And if it doesn't, hopefully, maybe it'll have the name Wolfpack or maybe it'll have the name Battle Creek. I love having the Battle Creek teams. I love the idea of that. And hopefully we can get all those guys together. And, sadly for me, my time of even really trying to play at this level is grinding down. And when I really decide that I think I'm done playing, I think maybe then I can take more of a role in organizing all of that stuff. For me right now, I'm 42 years old. I don't have a win. I've got some second places, some thirds, some fourths. The only win that I have, the only actual dub that I have is from the pump event in 2008, I think it was, at the MPPL in Buffalo. That's the only first place trophy that I have ever gotten out of this sport. And it's, it's a burden for me. And I do feel like these guys can, we can win. And, we're always one step away or one step short or whatever the deal is. And, I'm hoping once the world returns to a little bit of normalcy, we can start going in the right direction to do that. Because again, so the guys are a little bit older and, people have priorities and there are people on our team who really, everybody wants to win, but there are people that have a certain, there's varying levels of I want to win. And there are some people that are really, they want to win. Mm-hmm. And, that may bring change and that's reality. And that's not a bad thing. A feeder system would help us so much. But again, you have to have people that are 100% invested in it and that are making it happen. There was my personal experience with it. It was really tough to do the D3 team and our team and not have it look like we're taking everything. That's tough. And it's an age old thing. I can remember back when the Jesters had, there was a red, blue, orange polka dot, all of these different teams. And to this day, I don't know how Timmy did it. And it's a financial burden on everybody. But it's a worthy endeavor. So, it's one of those things where you really got to figure it out. You got to have some help on the outside, not only financially, but just logistically running it. And that's, it takes more than one person. Like for me, I mean, Rob, I do all I can to get our guys. It's like herding cats. Yeah. Yeah. And, and that's not, that's not exclusive to Wolfpack. That's, that's everywhere.
That's Rob.
There you go.
Yeah.
So to herd more cats is a daunting thing. You know what I mean? But then when you have that big group of people and it's no secret that Wolfpack was the most successful when they had all those teams because you have a built-in support system. You're never looking for guys to pit for you. You're, at practice, you can run drills to your head spins. People are all invested in the organization winning, not I want to win this point, which is a huge problem in the Northeast. Everybody trying to win at practice. It's something it's been forever. It's since 7-man, and it just seems like I've played paintball out in the West Coast and the vibe is a little bit different. Although Chris just got back from a trip out there and he said it's pretty similar to the way it is here now. So who knows? I might just be too old. So, yeah.
Potentially. So, before we go on, Sam, can you pass me the water real quickly?
Oh, God. Yeah. Here you go, Rob.
Thanks.
So
I
didn't
know there were dad jokes on the podcast. That's impressive.
Yeah, it can't happen today. So, so at some point inside of there, you talked about you do believe the team can win as it stands right now.
I do.
But I'm sure there is something you believe that could bring you guys to the next level. What would that be?
We need a little more buy-in, flat out. We have about 60%. You need 99 to 100%. So we got a little bit of ways to go. The problem with a team like ours, you have some people that are very successful in their personal life, and have jobs that are, I don't want to say
demanding.
They're demanding. That great word. I was going to say important, but they're demanding. And other guys that are in a stage in their life, like that they're buying a house. Like, one of the players I was speaking to today is buying a house. Other people trying to have kids. Other people have had kids. And it's hard to put the amount of effort into playing that you really need to. When we find out whether or not World Cup's going to happen, which I thought it was. I was one of the people who were like, yeah, Orlando's wide open. We're going to have it. I have my doubts now after hearing there was, 4,000 plus new cases in Florida over the past weekend or something like that. And
in Tampa, they just made it so you have to wear masks again in public. So it looks like things are starting to shut back up again. Yeah.
So I don't, obviously public safety is most important than our silly little game we play. I'm hoping that we can still do some kind of local stuff. Maybe, have some X-ball matches at Battle Creek or something like that. But, once we decide, hey, World Cup is happening 100% and Wolfpack is going to compete at World Cup, I would hope that, especially because it's World Cup, we have guys that, fully buy in. It would be ignorant to say that, they're just not doing it because they don't feel like it. That is certainly not the case. I don't have a single teammate that doesn't care about how we do. I have some teammates that have some life things going on that makes it that they can't be there all the time. And that hurts our chances of winning. So,
yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if you're in the process of buying a house right now and stuff, there's a bit more stress in there than this, right? Especially right now with what's going on as far as everything. Right. This can be put on the back burner just a little bit to get on with life.
Yeah. Well, you look at it, you guys played at the field and stuff like that. When you look at the teams that a lot of the teams that when they're winning and stuff, those guys don't go out and practice a 2 or 3 case practice on the weekend before an event. They shoot a skid each day. And it's not just firing paintballs up into the air. It's you're there in the morning, you're there until dark. You have some kind of system that you've arranged, that you've paid off your skid of paint to be able to use it. And listen, we get an incredible deal on paint, and our paint is better than any practice paint I've ever shot. But some of the guys, money's tight and stuff like that. And it's, our closest friend owns that business, and it has to be successful for him and his family. And that's important to all of us. So,
yeah. So, I mean, we're talking about World Cup, and hopefully it happens. Maybe it doesn't, but let's say it does happen. Walk us through the process of that 2-week layout period. That first Saturday we'll even go through the practice at the event. Like, what do you do to get the guys prepared?
So the first weekend is learning, right? You're learning the whole first weekend for the most part. First day, everybody usually comes in with an idea of like, hey, I looked at the layout. This is what I think. Well, let me go backwards. Before that, usually Ian will label the layout, right? We have a certain way of doing it. There are certain bunkers that are always called certain things. And, he labels the layout in a way that everybody's very comfortable with. So whether, and Ian hasn't been able to play every event recently. Luckily, even if he doesn't go to an event, he still does all the calls for us.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing that happens is everybody gets comfortable with the calls. We get to Battle Creek on Saturday. We'll usually walk the field for a little bit, try to talk about, what we think the deal is going to be, where some shots are, which almost always drives me crazy and devolves into, bounce shot this, bounce shot that. It's like, But so that first day, that's what it is. You're learning those lanes. You might do some breakout drills, close the day out with playing some full points and stuff like that. Definitely debrief afterwards. Hey, what do you like? Where do you want to play? We do have some guys also that flip flop around the field. So like there might be a snake that suits Ian, or it might be a Dorito side that suits Ian. And he's like, hey, listen, I want to play the D's this time around. And we work with that, and that it's great for us because you never know where he's going to attack from. Second day is usually the second day of the layout, the first Sunday. It's at Battle Creek. So it's when you have the mob of teams coming, right?
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing is that there's a gazillion teams. My second day on the layout is probably different than my teammate's second day. I watch all those teams, D3 teams, D4 teams, D5 teams. I try to watch as much as I can as well, because you'll pick up little things and you'll see like, somebody keeps getting shot in this gap. Where's it coming from? And you can see all those teams doing that. For us, we usually wind up playing a little bit more on that second day. So the first weekend is really just figuring it out. We usually travel or try to have somebody come to us. The Hurricanes have been a great team for us to play. prior to events. The problem with that is that we've also drawn them a couple times at events. After playing with them the whole time, and we know what they do, they know what we do, and it's, I don't know if that's the best thing. It doesn't really matter, but it's just I like to play teams that are different teams and really try to figure out what they're going to do. So that second weekend, especially on the second Saturday, we almost always travel on that day. That's when you're going to go out and test out what you kind of built up the first day. For me, that Saturday is very stressful because I have an idea in my head of what's going to work, right? And I'm like, all right, so these 2 or 3 different breakouts, I think this is what we're going to do. When they don't work, and inevitably 1 or 2 of them won't work, you got to rework everything sort of on the fly, because now not only are you practicing for the event, that's very important, but you've got another commodity, right? You have the other team that you've either invited or you're visiting their field. And usually it's a team at least at our caliber and semi-pro. Hopefully we get to play some pro teams.
Yeah, because I've seen MYX like at Creek and stuff, or you've gone to Matt's Outback. And
I think they're going to be there this weekend. Shameless plug. So that's usually that Saturday. And then Sunday, the next Sunday is, we've got a couple of looks that we want to throw. There might be some audibles that we've put in as well. The calls, I make those calls from the sideline most of the time. Now we're really like the second Sunday, the one right before we travel. That's when we're really trying to put it out there to like, all right, we have a good handle on this layout. Here's what we're probably going to come out of the gates with. If a team is really strong Snake Way, we'll have a play for that. If a team is really strong Dorito Way, we'll have a play for that. Obviously, we'll have a strong Snake play. We'll have a strong Dorito play. We'll have a strong center play. And, then we go from there. A lot of times during the school year, I'm not able to go to that practice on site because I got to teach. And, for me, that practice is a good way. It's 2 things. It's a good way to show everybody what you're doing. But it's also great to get the first match jitters out ahead of time. So, you try not to show your whole deck. And what's really nice is to go out to the event and play somebody you normally wouldn't play. If you can get involved in a pro practice for us, or even if a D2 team that's really good, that's, if we can play somebody else and sort of run through our stuff, that's really when it's the best. Because you don't want to play somebody you're going to play at the tournament, even if it's your friends.
Yeah, because didn't you guys practice Wild Dogs and then you guys pulled Wild Dogs for Vegas?
Yes, I believe so. Yes. So.
Fun.
That was, it's one of those things where it's like, exactly, you're like, fuck. So, or, that's happened with us with the Hurricanes a bunch of times. We'll go play them and it's all of a sudden it's like surprise, or with Nasty, or, A team when we were going out to PAP and stuff like that.
It's hard at your level, though. It's hard at your level to find a team because there's only 20 semi-pro teams.
Right. And then you look at it, right? What do the pro teams do? They play each other. And sometimes they're in the same bracket and sometimes they're not. And it is what it is. You go out and get the best practice you can. So, and then, after that practice, hopefully you can sit down and really talk about what you're going to do, that first match. Hopefully the team you're playing in the first match is also practicing, and maybe, you can get a look at them, because if they're any good, they're going to look at you. So, that's another opportunity to scout and figure that stuff out too.
Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense. I mean, it's tough, especially at your level. Like you can only, and without so much funding from outside sponsorships, there's only so far that you can go. Like you guys, for the most part, you're not being in New Jersey, you're playing New Jersey. I can see the farthest that you're going up north is maybe Boston Paintball, but really you wouldn't even go that far. You go to Matt's to go play the Hurricanes.
Right.
You're really going to go as far south as like NR, maybe SMP, to go play Nasty or Brawl.
Right.
So I could definitely see that, and especially at the pro level, there's only so many pro teams. Like X Factor plays Houston Heat. They'll probably draw them at some point, but it doesn't matter. They're still the top contenders. So like that practice is still going to be really good.
It's going to be incredible.
Yeah. I mean, so do you see that practicing certain teams, or like if you see a layout, will you go to try to scrimmage specific teams? Like if you see that this looks like it's going to be a fast layout, let's go try to go play against the Hurricanes. They have bodies that move quick. I mean, Keith DeVitt, all over the place, and you're friends with him. Same thing with Alfred.
Yep.
Or like if it's a slow layout, would you want to try to go play like a team like Brawl, who like they can play both sides, they can play both fast and slow. But I mean, I sponsor them, so I watch a lot of their games. Like they can lock down a field between Tom, Emai, Mike Baker.
Mike Baker alone, like, I mean, I've known Mike forever. He's got such a great gun, and he's so disciplined. You have Jeff, who's like just a wild man out there, just running around, and just all he wants to do is stab the guy in front of you, and you can't teach that. Like, that's amazing. Like, having guys like that, like those are
the intangibles. Those are the intangibles that we were talking about.
I wish I could tell you yes, but I would be lying, right?
Yeah.
We are in a position where a lot of times we take what we can get, sort of, as are those teams that, teams like, in my opinion, teams like the Hurricanes or like Brawl, we kind of draw from our area. Luckily, you've got, in a small area, you've got, let's talk about who's around, right? So you've got us, you've got Brawl, you've got the Hurricanes, you've got Nasty, you've got teams like the Padres.
You have Revo. Now that they're at Top Gun.
You have Revo, right? You have all the others, the semi-pro Revo. Revo has like 2 semi-pro teams or whatever the deal is, right?
Yeah.
So you have those 2 teams. The Brooklyn Bears are playing again.
Are they now? Are they actually?
They're playing out on the island, yeah. And those guys are around also. Like the NWO guys, those guys are around. They're playing on other teams too. Yeah. There's such a big between, and the Jesters are around.
Yeah, you got Wreckage also.
Right. There's so many teams. CWE Power out of Matt's Outback, another great team. Even at our field, we have great matches against teams like Superfast and Brave, and it's just it's easier for them. They know our tendencies, and they get wild. So like when you're at our level, you see a lot more paintball being played, right? Traditional moves. Maybe there's a big move here and there. But when you play some of those lower division teams, it's fun because you're like, did he just fill from the snake corner to the Dorito 3? How the fuck? What? Because in our division, that it just doesn't happen. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and every now and then, those teams, they just get wild, and it's fun, and it's tough too. You got to adjust to that sort of thing. There's a couple of guys like Monty who plays at the field. That dude runs to your side of the field almost every game, and he lives. Yeah. He lives. He figured out his spot. He exploits the center, and he's alive up there in the center all the time. And it's tough, So I do think that in our area, and if you call it like the tri-state area or the Northeast or whatever you want to call it, there really there's a grip of teams that are really great for us to draw from, but a lot of those teams are tied very closely to their fields too. Yeah. So, like we obviously want to play at Battle Creek, and, we have an obligation to be there. I know the Max teams have that sort of obligation as well. So one of the things that we had talked about at the beginning of this season was trying to travel during the off weeks and not necessarily on, we wanted to try to be the draw for our field. Mm-hmm. Us and the Padres, usually for one of that weekend, we usually try to have a couple teams and try not to kill each other.
Try.
Yeah. We do what we do.
Yeah.
But it's tough. It's tough when you're tied close to a field. It's also tough when you're invested. Like we had sponsors that were fields that like I kind of cared about a little bit. Like, it's my sponsor. It's important. This is different. Battle Creek for everybody playing on Wolfpack. It's a lot different. What Chris has provided for us, what he provided for his friends at the Meadowlands before, even when he was, running ZJ and stuff like that, it's different. That guy puts a lot on the line for us. He's got a little one at home, and he has to make ends meet and make sure that he's successful, for her and for his family. And we're directly tied to that. And I can tell you that we care deeply about it. Ian went out there and they built that field, Ian and Chris, and, a bunch of us helped out as well, but those guys were there day and night. Tiger as well,
yep.
They go out there and they built that field with their blood, sweat, and tears, just like they did at the Meadowlands before. And, it would be great to say like, oh, they built it so they could all get rich and what have you. That's not the case, man. He really started out doing this for his friends, to give his friends a place to play. I've known Chris for so long. I remember him, there would be teams from Long Island that he threw paint at to help with nothing in return, asked for nothing in return. Just, hey, we're homies. I know you guys are struggling a little bit. I can get you like 10 cases at the event if that helps a little bit. And, it's important to us that the field is successful on a level way bigger than, well, then we get to play paintball. It's that, our friends help build it. And hopefully the facility is going to speak for itself, and then more teams will come to us. And, that does happen too. So, we do get to have teams come out, and a lot of the pro teams have expressed their interest in playing at our field. The problem is, we haven't had an event close since Philly, and Philly was a hot mess.
Yeah, that was a little
say
tough.
the least.
I mean, honestly, the event would have been so much. It would have been fine if it didn't rain like the 3 or 4 days before, but just because of that, it's like, of course, like nobody's the community college is not going to let anybody back. There's no way. They actually the next weekend they were supposed to have like a soccer or like an ultimate frisbee tournament on those fields.
Yeah. No way.
That was a bad idea on their part, though.
The problem with that Philly venue was that where we played, and I know this from sort of being on the committees for different sports, at school and stuff like that. You have to offset, right, for environmental purposes. We were playing in the marshland. If you remember, there was that little island of cattails.
Mm-hmm.
We were playing in the runoff area.
Yeah.
So when it rained, that's why the pro field didn't do as bad as our field.
Yeah.
When it rained, we were in the catch basin.
Yeah.
The problem is that the NXL had to make a move last minute to get that venue, and they did the best they could.
Yeah.
It was a mistake to be there. That's for sure. In my opinion, they made a mistake, but they also did the best they could. And it is I felt like the Vegas event this year was fantastic. I really did.
Yeah,
Vegas, Vegas this year, Vegas last year. I love going to that place. I mean, don't get me wrong. I really wish, and we've had this discussion with Stretch, that like we could play at the Riviera. Like, I mean, that was so iconic, and it probably destroys people's knees and elbows and everything.
I played a couple of 7-man events there, and it was.
Yeah, it's definitely rough, but I mean, to go from there and then find another place in Vegas and to find as nice of a park as what Vegas is. Honestly, I think Vegas is the nicest event out of all the events.
I'm with you. I agree.
It's World Cup is great because it's World Cup, but it's always super hot, super humid. There's basically no shade. Vegas is at the perfect time. It's just like it's early spring. It's still kind of cool. It's not too hot.
Wonderful. I mean, it's great.
The year, not this year, but the year before, it was like mid 60s, and it was like you wear a hoodie to the field, and as the day kind of heats up, like
right on. Those are the best days.
Now, I don't want to hear it's because I have bias, because I 100% have bias, but I live in Florida. Orlando, hour away, sounds great. World Cup's the best event of the year.
Well, my opinion is two events on like either like Vegas Cali or Vegas, and then I would love to play there twice.
Yeah.
If you want to put one in the middle of the country at the middle of the year, fine. But like, why? Literally at the World Cup venue, I would love to play more than once.
It's a nice venue.
Good venue, yeah.
Especially with the Gaylord Palms right in the background.
Fantastic.
And walk right over there.
Well, the access, I think even better is the access to houses. You have such great access to places to stay. And it's, that's another thing that, it usually falls in the coach's lap too, to sort of do all the travel stuff and everything else like that. And, we definitely have had the most success with our houses when we get them in Orlando. That's
sure. I've had the conversation with you about housing for
that's right.
last year. Yeah, we've had the conversation. I have to wrangle all the cats. I mean, like when we were deciding to do the Vegas house this year, the first thing was it was like Stretch, Camille, and I think it was just the two of them. It was like, yo, we got to get that same house, that like the NXL house that we did last year. And I looked so hard to get that house, and I couldn't find it. And Stretch is still disappointed with me that it's like as close to the house that you got, still not as good.
Well, so Tiger sent a thing into our team thread that there's a house that's a fully Star Wars themed house, and most people know I'm a Star Wars nerd.
Oh, so, huge Star Wars.
Like, yeah, we're staying there. And he's like, well, there's no movie theater room. I'm like, that's cool. Like, we're still staying there.
Movie theater room. There's a living room, isn't there?
Get your laptop. You'll be fine.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, now that like we've kind of gone through a lot of the stuff with your team, like coaching in general, we like to go into like some of these hypotheticals and see kind of like where your brain is at. To start it off is, if you had a chance to coach any pro team, past or present, who would you want to coach, and why? Is it because there's a certain group of players that are on it? Is it just like a certain time that it was? Like, is it at Old School Expo? Are you coaching a 7-man team? All right, hell, I mean, is it a 10-man team?
Yeah. Geez, that's a great question. So the problem for me, this is where I need Zap. because Zap knows everything about every year ever. The team,
he's
the team that I'd want to coach would be.
He's an encyclopedia.
It's true. The team that I would want to coach is that Ironman team with Oliver and Pete and, Crunchy and Rondell was on that team, like the one that won World Cup and what, that year.
That was in
2008. I'm pretty sure it was.
With like Nikki Cuba and stuff.
Yeah, with Nikki and all those guys. Like, if I could ever, I'm not a good enough coach to coach those guys. That's for sure. But if I was to be able to be like, yeah, I want to do that, there's no question in my mind. That or maybe Excessive in their heyday.
Excessive would be good.
They gave me an opportunity to play 7-man with them. I played a couple of events with them, and have a lot of respect for Rich. And that might be exciting too, but not as close to exciting as those that 2008 Ironman team. Man, that team was amazing. And then plus like with Nikki being from the island as well, and in my opinion, Nikki's the king of New York. I know that I know it's a hot ticket right now.
Between Pat Kraft had it for Pro Tour. I know that Brad Baldwin was shouting out,
chirping on Frank.
It was like, dude, Frank, what's going on? Like, you're just gonna let this happen?
Well, the fact of the matter is, both of those guys
they played on Lift Kids together, right?
They didn't play together on Lift Kids. Frank played on the D3 team, and Pat played on Lift Kids. Both of those guys are kings of New York, like flat out. It's the two of them have matured into such amazing players that it wouldn't be fair to count either of them out of that conversation. I'm sure if Nikki was still playing, he'd have a lot to say about it.
100%.
I'm hoping it's his birthday today, so happy birthday, Nikki Cuba.
Oh yeah, shout out Nikki Cuba, happy birthday.
Yeah, and I think that he'd have a lot to say about who the king of New York is. I'll be honest with you, I think the Lundqvist would have a lot to say about it. I think the Blonskis would have a lot to say about it. I think Nikki Vegas would have a lot to say about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's been a lot of guys. We're really lucky to be where we are. There's been a lot of great players that come out of this area. LJ is from Long Island. That's another guy that, like, a lot of people forget that LJ's from Long Island as well. And he's another player that's an amazing player.
Yeah. And didn't he got MVP? What was it? World Cup, right?
I don't know. I don't remember. He got the MVP, the one where he wasn't supposed to play, right? And he just came out and played.
Didn't play at all for the whole year or whatever.
Well, he's another
2 weekends.
He's another guy, man. He's got that switch you can flip, and he's amazing. That's a great question. What team you'd like to coach? And I can tell you with no hesitation, it's that 2008 Ironman team.
Yeah. So kind of going with that is like, if you could bring, because you're saying that, like, as a coach, you kind of need to have that second or third body to help give you information. And what I've noticed is at the pro level, there's always that head coach, whether it's Todd or Rusty or any like Bart. They always have an assistant coach. Like, I know Hitman has Jerry. Ryan Brand has Alex Martinez. Right. If you could pull anybody like as an assistant coach, who would you want to pull?
My friends are going to break my balls so badly. Dan Durbin.
He's got a big beard. I feel like I know this guy.
He does.
Yep, I know exactly who you're talking about.
Derv is one of my closest friends. And
he played on Lyft.
He was Lyft, basically. There was a couple of us that really were the core of it. It's funny. He's been out of the game for a little while. He got injured, work and stuff got crazy, but he used to help me a lot. And he's got high paintball IQ. For sure. Ian would be another person but I would want, I would imagine Ian would be playing.
Yeah.
I tried to think of somebody who's not really playing right now. But that would certainly be like Derv would be the guy for me because he did it once already. He has really high paintball IQ. His IQ in real life might not be as high. No, he's actually, he's a guy that he knows how to break down a field. He understands angles. And he is the polar opposite that I am as far as his thinking goes, and that makes a perfect pair. That would be the person that I would pull. I'd love to coach with Todd, but I would never be the head coach, and obviously Todd be the the assistant coach would be the other way around.
Yeah. Never happening.
Exactly right. So that sort of thing would be it would definitely be Derv, for sure.
Gotcha. And kind of moving a little bit forward, and now we've talked about coaches. Let's talk about some players that are out there. In the pro circuit, everybody talks about probably the usual, say maybe 20 players,
Right.
20, 25 players. I mean, with that being said, there are definitely overrated players and underrated players.
Sure.
Some might get a little bit more fame because of the team that they play on, or they have vlogs, or they do some other social media or whatever. Who would you say is the most underrated player? Because he hides in the shadows.
Nico Hyde. He's one of the best players in the goddamn league. I mean, I'm wearing the shirt. I get it, but that's not what it's about. It's totally not what it's about. It's Nico. It's 100% Nico. The dude he's a killer. It's I get to play 10-man with him. He plays on the Winston.
Yep.
He plays ICC with us every year. It's very fitting that we're talking about Nico, and this just kind of pops into my head. It's very fitting that we're talking about Nico right now. I feel like there's a couple guys that embody what Tim was about. I feel like Nico is the closest thing. And I feel like he's got a heavy burden on him to be that guy now. Nico is so positive all the time. He's always looking out for people. I mean, Jesus, he made a line called "Enjoy Paintball." And not paintball ruined my life, not all this other stuff. Like, enjoy it, have fun, and it helps that he's literally one of the best players in the universe. I think I don't think he gets the credit he deserves sometimes. And he's overshadowed by maybe some bigger personalities. All the guys on his team are incredibly good. I mean, that's the thing is,
he plays on a super team.
Yeah. There's such little deviation between, who's the best player on that team and who's the air quotes worst player. That worst player is still one of the best players,
Yeah.
So I certainly, to answer that question, there's nobody else in my mind, but Nico as that person for sure.
Yeah. So then let's go to the other end of the spectrum. Like, who are some like overrated players? Like they still play pro and they probably shouldn't. Maybe it would be better if they go down and play semi-pro, or it's just that they're on a super team and they get mentioned more than they really should because they were so great at a time and they're just kind of riding those coattails.
Or say something that's not going to get you in trouble with somebody.
I'm in trouble all the time anyway.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
I'll take a little bit of a different angle. That's almost a softer angle, but I really do believe it. I don't think there's necessarily players that are quote like overrated, underrated, that sort of thing. I think there were players that maybe were young and chased money onto some of those super teams. Mm-hmm. Whereas like, I think that like Rosati's in a great place now. Yeah. I think he was wasted being on Impact. I don't think, like in my opinion, it was probably a great experience for him. I don't know him either. I don't know him personally really. But he would be a player who like, he's having a big impact, no pun intended, on, with the MIX guys, right? He's getting spins, he's playing all the time. And I don't think that really was happening, right? When he was on Impact. So, same thing with Tim Brusselback and stuff like that. I feel like there might be situations like that where guys are not in a system that fits them. Greg Sewers is a name that seems to come up on a different team all the time. Now, Greg is a master of his craft and he's, he's a great player. But I think that jumping around so much has taken a toll on his effectiveness.
Yeah.
Being in a new system every year has got to be a burden.
You got to learn new plays, new calls. You got to rekindle relationships with people that you might not know.
Your teammates and stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely. But then at the end of the day, like you see the people, they're going to call his number when they're in a tough spot. They're going to rely on him to get out of there. So, overrated isn't really the right sort of way to describe it. I feel like paintball's given some opportunities to people that weren't the right opportunities at the time for those people. I feel like there's some money in paintball in certain places where people chase a little bit and it just isn't the right thing.
Yeah, I understand why, but I understand that point. Like obviously, you're in here, you're putting. I'm just going to throw a number out here. It's probably way low. It's probably way high, but 30,000. Just example. I know there's no one really, unless you have money, spending 30,000 a year on paintball.
You're wrong. I wish you were right. It's like $100,000.
Okay,
crazy.
Well, from the average player, right, 30,000. So if you can go out there and spend 30,000 but make 80,000, I understand why they'd want to do it.
Right. No, I'm with it. It's another person I should have mentioned that had a big impact on me is Jeff Stein. I'm really good friends with Jeff, and Jeff's great because he's brutally honest.
He's so honest.
He's brutally honest when he needs to be, and then he'll just play crazy head games with you all the rest of the time. and we have a good time with it, Jeff and I. But he's a guy that taught me a lot about like sort of the funding you need to run a real team. And it really, like, you need $100,000 available to you. Like, maybe not one person putting that in, but like, that's like what it costs. It's crazy when you think about it. You're spending what, 10 grand just on entries. That disappears, like that disappears immediately.
Yeah. I was at Boston Paintball for like the Team USA practice.
Right.
Because some of us were playing the Amsterdam event. So we went up there and just like, we'll go play. Good time. But I feel like it was there or somewhere else that I overheard, and it was like, yeah, like our team, like we got like probably like, I think he said like 40 or 50 grand for like the whole season. Like we, as the Hurricanes, like we still do well. You know what I mean? Like you have other teams that have this 100 to 150 to $200,000. It's like that they should be doing. If they are not at the top spot and they have a budget like that, there is another issue. You know what I mean? If I had money like that to put into a team, yeah, we would be winning almost every event because each practice you're shooting 20, 30 cases.
You think so.
Off-season practice.
You think so. You would think so, but that's the great thing about sports, though. We sat here and I said it myself. Prepared talent beats talent, right? Yeah. Most of the time. Most of the time. There, a lot of like the Ironman. Ironman's a great example. Did anybody pick the Ironman to win the first event of the season?
No.
No,
I don't think so.
No way. And those guys are fucking killers. But their roster, when you look at it and you put it on paper next to some of the other rosters and rosters of teams they beat, people are like, they're not going to win. They do have a good budget, for sure. But it's sports, like that's the thing that's the allure of this still to me, is that like, it's that sort of any given Sunday thing. Like anybody can win. Now, to prepare and ensure your percentage of success is higher, that's where that money comes in big time. Yeah. Jeff would be a wonderful person to have on your podcast and talk to, because he has such great insight into those things, because he's been at the tippy top with the Hurricanes, when they were pro. And then, he's had some struggles as well. And Jeff does a great job of raising money and of finding people that sort of fit into the program that can bring more to the table than just their playing ability. Maybe they own a business. Maybe they do something where, they can also help, with the bill, like not pussyfooting it around at all, but like helping out with the bill is huge.
I mean, look at Bay State Bandits. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Like that was partially funded by like Sean Wyatt and Brett Messer with the dispensary.
I believe those guys put a lot of their money on the line for the.
I mean, they did well. They did well.
Yeah, I think they did
fantastic.
I think they did the same thing with Infamous. They, once they got on that team, they were able to help out and really help those guys. And you're going to see Infamous doing better and better and better. They're so young and so talented. But I think that those guys, they're two guys that can help you out in ways, they're great players, and then in ways that they can, other than their playing ability, they bring that stuff to the table as well. Like look at Joey with us on a much smaller scale, if you will. But like Joey, it helps that Joey's an incredible player. But then, Joey's a gun tech. Joey, he has all the stuff as far as like the sewing stuff goes. He does things like he has a laser cutter now. And all of those little things, like we use some of them to sort of fundraise, and other things are just, you make yourself a little like the Bartleboro patches. Yeah. But what do they really do? They make everybody smile. And it's so important. You know what I mean? Like that
gotta enjoy paintball.
You got to enjoy paintball. It's so important though. But those little things, it's important that you can have people that can bring those things to the table. I would be remiss if I didn't mention, John Peterson, he owns his own business, and he helped us out with our entry to Vegas. Obviously Straza, we call him he's our uncle because he helps us out with that sort of thing all the time. Right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And, without people like that, it just makes, I've been on teams where we don't really have a person like that, and everybody's sort of fighting for that same piece of pie. And it's tough, man. It's really hard, especially if you're relying on traditional paintball sponsorship, because that road
it doesn't really exist anymore.
As a person who owns, a company yourself.
Yeah, no, it's tough. I mean,
I can't imagine.
I tried to give as much value to my teams as possible, while providing a top-notch product.
Right. I mean, well, what you do with the media for the teams too is, you figure there are some teams that aren't, we're well networked, so it's a little different for us, but like there are other teams that they might not know who to get. And now you're getting, the benefit of having some of the better media guys cover them because they're, they've bought into your guys' program as well. And that's, I can't, it's huge. It's really, it's a big deal. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I've had an honest conversation with Tom Sellers, the guy who runs Brawl.
Yep.
Great guy. I mean, funny story, actually. So Imai was one of the original Kickstarter backers back when we first started Kinetic Paintball. After a while, when things got delayed and whatnot, he actually asked for his money back, which we gave to him. And then after we launched our product, had product in hand, he then bought it at full price, which then developed into Brawl getting it. And Tom even said to me, he was like, the only reason really why we went to you is because you're giving free media. Like we get media for every event. Jeff and Imai always want it.
Right.
Some of the other guys don't. Like Nate wants it. Alan, if you don't know who Alan is, it's like a skinny Asian dude.
I do know who he is.
Dude, he's an absolute savage. Mike Baker, I'm pretty sure that he sees me on the field and he's just like, I could care less. Man just goes out there and shoots paintball. And Tom is just like, I'm herding cats. Guys, I'll help. I'll get us there.
Tom Sellers, who I don't know personally, has the best nickname in paintball.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, they still have the best celebration picture I've ever seen.
Agreed. 100% agreed.
I've had the conversation with him and said, if you're about to win it, what are you going to do for the next week? He goes like, I'm not going to tell you, but it's going to be even bigger than when we won D2. So I am hoping and praying that if World Cup happens, as much as I love you guys, I kind of want to see them win because I can only imagine he's just going to throw hundreds. It was 20s before. I wouldn't be surprised if he.
I like
hundreds.
It's okay. I'll root for you guys.
Yeah, there you go. See, I would love to play those guys. Those guys are they're an exciting team to watch, and they're I feel like every so often teams come along. I feel like Lyft was that team for a little while. Wolfpack certainly was that team for a little while. I feel like the Brawl guys have sort of taken that torch of like, these guys are kind of out there doing their thing, having some fun, ruining people's day. And that's I dig that. I co-sign for sure.
Yeah. And they're very serious, but it's also
you can tell they're having fun. That's for sure.
At the same time where like, I'll go into some of these pits for like these upper divisional teams and it's just so serious all the time. It's just like I'm going there. It's like I try to say hi to a friend, and he's like, dude, not right now. Like we're about to start a match, not right now. Like I can't do this. It's like
you got to do what works for you. That's that goes back to what we were talking about with the coaching. Like some 100%. People are able to be really loose like that. I've been in pits where there's music blaring, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, Padres, they've always always music.
I didn't know that.
Always music. I always hear music. Either get ready, and same thing for Brawl. Like whenever they're getting ready and stuff, I always hear music playing. Just like
I mean during the match. I don't even mean during
that's ballsy. I don't even like. Is that even allowed?
Like, as long as it's not loud, but it's in there, and it's like it's one of those deals. But
dude, that's tough. I mean, with putting that aside, I mean, we've talked about pro players. Like, let's talk about some divisional players. Like, who do you see as like a rising star? Whether it's they're in a much lower division like a D3, D4, but you've heard their name, like know, like you just know that they're gonna do something, or they're at that D2, D1 level, and it's like it's only a matter of time before they go pro.
Right. The guy. I'm jaded. It's Joey for me.
Yeah.
Joey is just, and there's a couple of us, Keith DeVitt, doesn't really fit in that conversation because he's a seasoned pro playing in semi-pro. But Keith also recognized that in Joe, and, Joe's going to get an opportunity in Europe to play pro, I believe, when Europe happens.
If it happens.
That. I'm really out of the sort of lower divisional scene as far as knowing those guys. I know at our field, there are guys that I don't really think have any desire to sort of play at that level. Like a couple of guys in the Padres, man, like Steve and John have played with us before. Those guys are as good as anybody out there. Let's see. So Steve and John for the Padres for sure. Even little Anthony from Superfast, he's very raw, but he's good. And again, he's got that speed that you can't teach. I feel like, there's a small difference. This is going to sound weird. There's a small difference that makes a huge amount of difference in going from semi-pro to pro. It's the level, the margin of error is so much smaller, but the game is very similar. Although I will say this, we play way slower in semi-pro from what I've seen. As the when you go from Friday to Saturday to Sunday, the games really slow down. Whereas on the pro side of things, I feel like they pick up the pace a little bit and you see a lot more crazy moves happening, whereas guys are going to live behind their gun in semi-pro often. I feel like, see, the problem is a lot of my friends have either already sort of made it to that level, maybe even came back down or what have you. Like, there's a lot of guys in the Mutiny program that are fantastic. Guys on that Brawl team, guys like Jeff that may want to go do it. Like Mike Baker did it already,
Yeah, and he was with Revo from the start.
From the beginning.
Went all the way up. And then I don't know why he stopped playing pro, but
they all do things differently.
Whatever his reason was, went to Brawl, played. I think he started with them when they were playing D2, and then they just were doing well.
Yeah.
And now they're back on the semi-pro, and their first event in semi-pro, they made Sunday. I think they got knocked out by Blast Camp, which also phenomenal team. Talk about like a group of kids. I mean, most of them are like under 20, I think.
Yes, they beat us.
Yeah. I didn't want to bring that up, but you did.
No, it's fine. It is what it is. That's sports, So I don't really know, I don't really know a lot of the really young guys that I see as far as up and comers. And unfortunately, when everybody always talks about how semi-pro players are so salty, and most of us are, because like we don't have, you're kind of woke in that that like you could do really well in semi-pro, but you just don't have the time to put in to go play pro. And then we'd be lying if we didn't say like the pro division is very saturated with people who aren't going anywhere. So there's that. Like it's very rare that you see one of these big name pro teams pick up somebody out of sort of out of nowhere. I think that experiment happened last year with Impact, and I think it was a failed experiment. With those guys. And I think you saw them go back to picking up sort of names again, with a little bit of seasoning. But I think those guys, for sure some of the guys in the Padres, obviously on our team, Joe, I mean, listen, again, Ian played pro. Straza played pro.
Yeah.
Bartlestone played pro in 7-man. I like played pro in X-Ball too with Top Gun. There certainly guys on our team that could go, but I don't know that's their drive. And I wouldn't put somebody who's already been there in that category. So I would say from our team, it would be Joe. Joe's the guy that Joe would be the best back player on almost any team out there.
Yeah. I mean, he and from what I know of Joe, and this is Joe DeFranco, I mean, he wants to go pro.
Yeah.
Like that's a life ambition.
And he treats it appropriately.
Yeah. He does.
And he, like he's a master of his craft.
He is a paintball athlete, not, hey, I go play tournament paintball with the homies. I
mean, the other thing too is I've been so lucky to be able to see my friends do that. I mean, when you go down the list of them, like you got guys like Alfred, Ian, Straza, Frank, Anson Masso, Pat Kraft. I watched him when he was a baby. Those guys and those guys are consummate pros, like those are guys that are playing in the pro division, having success. When I was first starting, there was a team called ECE that had, the Altamore brothers, and now, Robbie's one of the better snake players in the game for sure. And it's like, I got to see a lot of those guys sort of realize their dream, if you will, and work hard and get there. So, it could be anybody stepping out on that field that really decides to turn up their ambition, and you got to get noticed somehow. Or in the case of guys like the Rebel guys or guys like the VCK guys, have that team that you can travel with, and like that certainly helps when you can get to the top of a division.
I mean, AC Diesel
as a team. There you go. But they're a team, AC Diesel is very interesting. They're obviously an incredible team. But then you take a look at that roster, and it's like, oh, these guys were Texas Storm. Most of these guys did play pro, and it's like, that's why they've got a roster of like 7 or 8 guys, and they get down to business because they know what it takes to be a pro. And that camp treated their semi-pro experience like a pro team. Never, I don't think there ever was a more deserving pro spot earned.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. And they did really well with their debut as well.
Yeah, I think they got 1 or 2 wins. 2 wins.
I think they got. I know they made Sunday.
They did, so they got at least 2 wins.
So they got at least 2. Yeah.
You can see how much I've really. That's one thing that I do miss. I don't watch as much pro paintball anymore as I used to because I'm so wrapped up with sort of trying to again, wrangle cats, and get us everything that we need and, like do what we need to do. And the other part of it is that, like, in my opinion, the story is on the semi-pro field.
Yeah.
I feel like the pro field doesn't have the story anymore. I feel like the story's on our field. I'm not saying that because of our teams. I'm saying that because, you do have at any point in time, you have at least one, maybe two teams that are going to be playing on that main stage next year. And it sets up, again, a nice narrative, to see who's going to be up there.
Yeah. I mean, I gotta agree there. There's always I've noticed that certain matches, obviously there's always like Dynasty versus Heat. There's going to be 150 people there watching. But I've noticed that certain matches in semi-pro, there's the same amount of people watching.
It's wild.
Like the ones I always liked was Ralph Boys versus Jits.
Yep.
Always had tons of people there just because both Florida teams, both teams that everybody knows.
Yeah.
DMG versus Diesel.
Yeah.
That always brought a lot of people.
Yep.
Anyone versus Brawl.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the same, back in the day, like especially when there was coaching. Jesus, forget about it. Whenever there was a Lift Jesters match, people would leave their pro games to come to see our game because who knows what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it was cool.
It was for blood.
Yeah, literally. You literally go out there hating each other. And some of my good friends played with them as well. And like, it just was, there was a lot on the line. Whether it was bragging rights or whatever you want to call it, just a lot on the line.
So, I mean, we had this conversation with Nick about the webcast, and that one way that he said about improving the webcast is trying to bring the webcast to the semi-pro field in some way, shape, or form. Doesn't have to be as crazy high tech as the pro field, but to showcase the semi-pro field, because there's so much talent. These are the people that are going to be. Some of them are going to be moving up. Taking those pro spots, or like they're just there, and that's the beginning of stories.
Right.
I mean, do you think that should come back? And I mean, they did it at Philly, they did it at Chicago last year.
So I have very strong feelings about it, especially about Philly.
Let's hear it.
It was a great move in the right direction to sort of have I don't know whether they use Mixer or Twitch or whatever they used.
Twitch.
Right, Twitch to stream, which I heard, by the way, Mixer is going to be no more. They're getting rid of it.
Mixer, they sold to Facebook.
That's gnarly.
And then,
So they shouldn't have done it. If you want to stream, if you want the semi-pro field to be on the webcast, then put them on the webcast. Don't have two goons standing in a desk with audio that keeps going in and out, standing under a tent, rather, not at a desk, with audio that keeps going in and out. Standing in a place where you can hear everybody yelling at them. I thought they should have, for Philly, they should have been a little bit embarrassed, to be perfectly honest with you. And I do think that I think Cena and those guys, the webcast, I do think it has come so far and that it is really good. So what I think is that there should be two pro fields. And they should schedule some semi-pro games on one of those pro fields. The issue then is right. So you have now this dedicated ref staff for the pros.
Yeah, the 14 guys, and we talked to Wilson about this.
Right, and the thing is with those guys, they are literally reffing a different game. There are different rules. There's small nuances, but it's different. So you have to have another ref crew come in and then ref, the semi-pro guys and stuff like that. If there were two fields and you sort of figured out, okay, here's the schedule. Not every pro match is going to be on the webcast. We're going to do, the top 5 semi-pro teams will each also get one game on the webcast as well. I just feel like it would be better. The fields are supposed to be all the same, especially early in the event when you can get into I believe the grandstands the first day, are they free?
No, I don't think they're free, but they're cheaper.
They're cheaper. Okay.
Yeah.
So you'd have to work something out with like, where would you see the other pro teams play? The answer would be to have two pro fields. Maybe they're back to back with the bleachers in the middle or something. Who knows? I'm not good at the logistics of that, but I think that if they're going to showcase some semi-pro teams, let them be on the actual pro field on the actual webcast. With Maddie and whoever's available at the time. If it's Maddie and Todd and Nick, those guys have really started to really do a good job. In fact, I think that they've done such a good job that Maddie's role is starting to sort of decrease as that voice of paintball. Like when the webcasts first started, all anybody could ever talk about was how amazing Maddie is. And Maddie is an amazing person for sure. But he does play his favorites a lot, and he talks about things that are like, people are kind of over it, like he waited for some teams to win so long. He kept saying, they're almost there. They're almost there. And it's like, he talks about changing the narrative. There's no new narrative. It's the same stuff. And he's doing the best with what he has and stuff like that. But I feel like if you really want the semi-pro team to be featured, then it's got to be on the webcast, not webcast light, not some semblance of the webcast, not being, streamed on somebody with epilepsy's phone. Like it's just one of those deals where let them have the actual pro field with the actual webcast, so those guys get the angles that they worked so hard for so many years to get. And that's true. Like the evolution of the webcast, like it used to be, you couldn't see when players were in certain spots, you just couldn't see them.
Yeah.
And that's much better now. They don't do, it's not as bad as it used to be. They have that zip line with the camera and stuff, and pretty awesome. Yeah. So that's my answer to that. I think they should be, the story is on the semi-pro field for sure. They should let those teams play on that big stage with the real webcast and not just some semblance of the webcast. I feel like do it all the way or don't do it.
That's fair.
That's fair.
I mean, either don't half-ass it. Either you're either in or you're out.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing. I've talked to the guys, to CJ and to Z, like, why does the equipment on the semi-pro field always break? The scoreboard never works, like ever. Whether it's the big scoreboard or the small monitors in your pits, there's always a friggin' problem. And my same thing, and if Z watches this and CJ, like, they're going to shake their head. I'm like, hey, this is the most important division because there's a team coming out of this division to go to the big field, and like you wouldn't, they would stop the game if there was an issue with the scoreboard in the big field because, you rely on that scoreboard, especially if it's a close game, right?
Yeah. So,
I feel like it's the same. It falls in the same realm. Like, don't half-ass it. Especially don't half-ass the semi-pro team where someone, let's say it's Tom. Let's say Brawl wins the division, right? Tom has the means. It seems like Tom has the means to foot the bill to have a pro team, right? So he's going to put all that money out, and then for what? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. You can't. He's putting all the money out for semi-pro, and then we go to have the streaming service for our events, and it's literally 2 GoPros up on big pilings. And it's like, wouldn't it be better it's almost better to hear people talk about the match than to watch it on some sort of half-assed webcast. I'd rather have people be like, because then, tall tales happen, right? So people start talking about it. And it's like, in the beginning, what really happened was like one person bunkered somebody. And by the end of the month, it's, did you see that guy run over there and jump over the bunker and stab him backwards while he's spinning around? And it's like, that's how these crazy tales are born. And I feel like I'd rather have that situation than some half-assed webcast. My real beef was that they were standing in a tent with like everybody, and you could just hear people yelling shit into the like where the microphones were.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little tough. And honestly, when it comes to like semi-pro matches, like I'll say I think Solus has probably some of the best raw footage for those semi-pro matches.
Yeah,
hands down. I mean, the flaming ginger that he is, he manages to get clean footage all the time.
Yeah, his hair definitely can affect that. So I see why you mentioned it.
I mean, we're very partial to Nick. Like Nick is our buddy, and Nick's followed us around, and like he did such a great job with Dirter and stuff. And I just think he's so, dude. So obviously, Quitman's talented as well, but I feel like Nick is right there.
No, definitely. I feel like they have different styles of shooting. Quitman is shooting to make edits, and this is something that, I mean, personally, that I've had a conversation with Matt, because something that we've thought about doing for the media gang is like shooting these high profile semi-pro or D2 matches and then potentially trying to sell some ad space on it.
Right.
Because like people want to see this. Like I said earlier, Ralph Boys versus Jits. Like,
it's a great match.
Wouldn't want to see that.
Everybody wants to watch Mutiny also. Like I have a lot of friends on that team.
The violence guys, they cover, I think in Vegas they had 3, it was Paul, Julian, and Dufort shooting that one Mutiny match, and the video came out great. I thought they did a fantastic job.
Yeah, there's a lot of exciting teams in our division, especially up towards the top. Like there really are. There's a lot of, and like I said, the story is there, and I feel like it is getting a little bit stale up at the pro division, especially up towards the top. I was very happy to see Damage do well. I'm happy to see Revo breaking in there and stuff like that. The AC guys are getting their due. But for a while it was like Heat Impact Dynasty, Heat Impact Dynasty,
Yeah, and X Factor trickled in there.
Right. And X Factor is the team you root for all the time, right? Because those guys are a team of actual, friends. They're very similar to the Dynasty guys, but those guys are, the X Factor guys are pretty neat. I think they're great for the sport too.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
So we've been talking for a long while. It's starting to wind this down a little bit. The last thing that we always kind of talk about before we'll let you shout out sponsors and like to thank all the fans and whatnot is one. I'm assuming you've heard of the media gang because we're friends, but like, what are your thoughts about it? Like, how do you think it's going to change paintball media at all?
I think you guys have changed. I think you guys have changed it already. I think just by doing what you did, like with the first initial media gang situation, and then coming up with a media gang logo, and then having it sort of juxtaposed with, maybe like with Flockhouse, I feel like it adds a certain amount of cohesiveness to everything, and I think it's neat to have a presence like that. And it's obviously always easier to call in a team of people than just individuals. There's so many photographers that I'm so thankful for throughout my career. Playing paintball, because there's a saying that a lot of guys out here have that, we only play for the pictures. And, guys from back in the day, like Matt D, who, is no longer with us.
Talk about the GOAT.
Matt D, Jack Palumbo, Brad,
Skip Hickey.
Right. Skip. Yep. Skip's Helen Gross or Helen G. Rose or Heaven, depends on who you ask. Right. Those are people that, I got so many pictures from early on, the whole ObayPictures.net when Paul Mai was also shooting for them and he was playing with us while he was shooting for them as well. I feel like you guys are bringing back that era of paintball photography, which was such a huge piece of, if you got a picture from Matt, like literally it made you came in dead last in the tournament, but I got a picture from Matt. And
doesn't
it's like,
matter.
Yes.
Still a good event.
Yeah. But you guys are doing something pretty similar with really taking, the media gang, and some of your guys' photos are becoming really like, it's incredible, like yourself and Stretch and, all with the media and stuff like that with the video aspect of it. There's just so much, it's a deluge of just media coming at you from all different angles. And it's fantastic. I love that you guys also embrace the 10-man field on Sunday a little bit here and there. And cause there's good stuff going on over there as well. You guys have such a good presence. I love that you guys, is it at, you weren't allowed to wear Hawaiian shirts, right? But at ICC, I think you are, right?
You didn't bring it up, but yes, I'm so happy that you brought it up. Yes, our friends
I'm all for it, man.
Were kicked off the pro field because they were wearing Hawaiian shirts.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I think it's fantastic to see you guys out there as a part of the fun. Because, listen, I get it that you're on the pro field. It's a pay-to-play situation. They are professional athletes. There are some people that do it for a living, certainly. But I sometimes I think it's important that we don't take ourselves too seriously. And just having a bunch of people standing around the outside of the paintball field, risking tens of thousands of dollars of equipment, should be allowed to wear a Hawaiian print shirt. Especially if it's like, not for nothing, you should be seen, right? So like get a nice loud one.
And it was Casual Friday.
It was Casual Friday. That's true.
Yeah. And the fact that Fava has been wearing it for like the past 5 years, at least one day, every event. And like, this isn't an issue. And Dave Stofferman, Aztec Photos, he took off his bright orange Hawaiian shirt to just his normal bright orange
Aztec Photos. Yeah.
Didn't make sense, but
well, the best. I mean, I've been looking at Brad wearing shorts and Sperry's since I can't even remember.
Yeah.
Out there, and again, risking his equipment for how many years, right? But both you guys risking your equipment. I do feel like they should. It is important to keep the sanctity of the game. I mean, I personally know a couple of photographers who have helped out other teams, and it is what it is, like that's part of the game. And you got to hope that everybody's going to be honest and what have you. And you got to also hope that there are people watching, that can say, hey, it looks like you're doing this, so please stop doing it. But I love it. I think that, you guys are bringing media back into the sort of the mainstream, and in a time when there is a lot of media being put out by the league itself with the webcast and the shorts that they do. Like Dan Napoli was a really good friend of mine.
Oh my God. The whole Artifact series is so good.
Yeah. And then, and Diltz, and Chris Diltz was one of Obama's photographers, I mean, he's seen things that none of us could even figure out. He's been on Air Force One. Like, it is what it is, but
Brad Baldwin tried to bring some guy that shot the World Series for World Cup.
And I just feel like it's important that not only do we see it through the lens that the league wants to see it, but that we see it through like you guys who are you're all players. You have friends that are heavily invested in this. You're heavily invested in it. And it tells a little bit of a different story. And I like it. I dig it. I think it's great. It's important. That's why there's so many sports writers out there and so many photographers out there at professional sporting events, because they're going to tell, each one of them is going to tell a different story. You brought up a great point with Nick and Quitman. Like, Nick has told me a million times he's trying to tell a story. If you look at some of the raw footage that he puts out, you'll see him talking to me like, hey, where is, and if you don't, I'm going to tell you about it. He'd be like, hey, who's going to be going somewhere that I'm going to, it's going to be like in their face or whatever. Are you guys breaking far somewhere? And I'll tell him, I'll be like, yeah, Ian's going to go to their 50 or like whatever the deal is, and he sets himself up to make sure he doesn't miss that and try to tell a story. He got that great clip of us. Unfortunately, it's of us losing in Chicago, but where the guys on
Crisis
reel in Roros. I mean,
Yeah.
The way that he filmed that was literally brilliant. He saw what was going on. It stinks that it happened to us, but those guys, give it to Crisis, man. They nailed it. And they set the trap and John went right into it and they were able to kill him. And he got, Kuza got that all on film, and that's pretty neat, and it's pretty exceptional as well. So.
I do want to say two things because I didn't want to cut off anybody. Rob, first, it's Stufflebeam. It's not Stuffelman.
Yeah, I was going to,
I fuck up his last name every time. I promise he's not an asshole. And
most people think he's Dave Aztec, so you're good.
Yeah, Dave Aztec, or people say he's an asshole. I promise you, he's not an asshole.
No, definitely not. He's a great dude.
Super nice guy. Love him to death.
Big wrestling fan.
Yes, he shoots for the WWE.
Shoots for him. I
know. The second thing I want to say is, as far as I know, you were talking about the Hawaiian shirts being professional athletes. I've yet to hear a single player had a complaint.
Nobody has. No, it was only. I believe it was one person that had a complaint.
I don't think they were playing.
No, I think they're the person that controls the media.
Yeah.
So
the revolution will be televised.
Yeah, and it won't be wearing a vest.
Same.
It wasn't. It wasn't Gary.
Was it Gary? No,
he was very angry that they went over. It was very angry.
We'll talk about this.
Well, in that case, that's crazy. Then Gary's got to step up. He's in charge. He's got to be like, no, this is fine. And not for nothing, Gary probably risks more in equipment than anyone because.
Oh my god! Oh my god! He's so much.
Maybe Quitman's close when he's got the.
Quitman went to the Sony.
Oh no!
Quitman probably had. I would say this is just an estimate. Quitman probably has about $12,000 equipment on him.
Yeah.
Gary probably has double that.
Yeah, easy.
So I mean, they really should be listening to that guy on, if nothing else. I mean, not for nothing. Also, Gary's a really successful outside of paintball as well.
Yeah, super successful.
He's a guy with a big brain, and if he didn't have a problem with it, then no one should have a problem with it.
Wasn't he? Isn't he like a dentist or something outside of paintball?
It's an oral surgeon. It's different.
Oh my god, Jesus! What is he doing? What is he doing at a paintball field?
He's enjoying paintball.
I guess so. I thought he'd be on a yacht or something. Jesus.
He probably is during his other 364 days a year.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus lived in a desert. He didn't have a yacht.
Fair enough.
That's true.
Fair enough. But yeah. Thank you so much for
this
coming
is really
on.
fun, guys.
This is awesome. Let's definitely talk right after this, and we'll kind of explain some other things to you.
Yeah, for sure.
But this has been pretty eye-opening, especially a lot of people don't talk to coaches about the dynamic between coaches and players. What does it truly mean to be a coach, and how can you bring value to a team that other than just making the X's and the O's.
Right.
You know what I mean? Some teams need that. Some teams need a little bit more. And I've definitely seen both. So thank you for running through that and talking about it, especially like from an organizational standpoint. Like it takes a lot more than just, hey, we got 10 bodies. Let's go play paintball. You know what I mean? We can go do this.
I'm very lucky that, you know, I got my folks and my sister and my brother-in-law and my in-laws, and, you know, my family is pretty awesome. But, you know, my family lives about 100 miles away for the most part, and I don't get to see them like every day. You know, my wife's family lives pretty close. I mean, I could see them every day if I needed to or wanted to or what have you. And I do. And you know, it's great. But, you know, I was having this conversation with Ian the other day, you know, and I'm sure a lot of people in the sport have been having these conversations because of what happened to Tim. You know, you can see the friendships that Tim had with the guy, you know, basically the All-American guys, right? Like Chad and Ryan and, you know, those guys. He's just so unbelievably close with them. We're that way. You know, I got married a while ago, and a lot of the guys that were in my wedding party were people that were in my fraternity, and I played sports with in college and stuff like that. It would look very different now. I don't really talk to those guys anymore. It's my paintball family. That's my family. You know, those guys they mean the world to me, and I know that I mean the world to them too. So it's a pretty unique thing, this game, because I feel like it does happen to a lot of people. Like, look at the, you know, Media Gang in and of itself. You guys have done so much in such a short period of time, and it really does look like you guys are sort of all on the same page. And that doesn't mean you agree with each other all the time or that you're the best of friends, but you have a support system that you've developed with people who aren't your blood relatives. And that's important. That's certainly what we have it with Wolfpack. And, you know, like, my wife is friends with all the guys, you know, like, and friends with them, not just like, oh, that's his wife. That's, you know, that's Carolyn, and she's a part of our team as much as I'm a part of the team. And, you know, whenever she gets to go to an event, she always helps out in the pit and stuff like that. And the guys have embraced her and you know, like, included her in everything. Same thing with, you know, with Mika, who's Todd's fiance, same idea, you know, that sort of stuff is it's important that we're more than just teammates. It really is. We have a support system for each other. We help each other up as much as we knock each other down, because we are literally brutal with each other. We're the first people to pick each other up. And if somebody outside our circle tries to knock somebody down, they're going to learn pretty quickly.
Of course. You can talk shit to your friends. Other people are not allowed to talk
That's
shit
the way
to
it
your
goes,
friends.
man. That's the way it goes.
100%.
So,
but yeah, if you have any sponsors you want to shout out, or anything special for.
Well, on a personal level, you know, I mean, obviously for us, the biggest thing is to have Battle Creek Paintball. You know, what Chris and Steve and those guys have set up for us is really it's something special for sure. You know, we wouldn't be able to do the things that we do without having that field. That's for damn sure. And, you know, Chris puts his neck out for us, especially during the coronavirus. He was, you know, trying to get himself to a place where he could open up safely. And then he never once forgot about all his players. You know, like, all of the teams, he wanted them to be able to have time to play. So he developed, you know, on his own, he developed the schedule that he was going to put out. And he cares so much about the sport and cares so much about the players that, like, I'm really proud to represent that field. I really am. You know, it's a weird sponsor, but like Joey has like Fight Paintball, you know, and if we ask Joey to make, you know, crazy stuff, he never hesitates and like prints out all this crazy stuff. And, you know, on top of his duties as a player, he's like sort of, you know, makes all the beanies and does merch and all that other stuff. So, you know, those guys are you know, those are the in-house sponsors, right?
Yeah.
I also want to put a disclaimer out there that I know I'm going to forget somebody and get shit for it. So
100%.
There's that. You know, Todd Martinez at Weapons has, you know, for me on a personal level, he's become a close friend. He certainly provides our team with, you know, the highest quality, in my opinion, jerseys. He always deals with us when we're like, yeah, can we get jerseys for this event that's going to happen in like 13 minutes? And, you know, he pulls it off for the most part, makes it happen, you know. So thanks to him. Nico, you know, Nico's our buddy, but he also, I mean, for goodness sakes, he put Battle Creek on his shirts. Like, it's so awesome.
Nice.
You know, I mean, Nico's very, like koozie that I wouldn't be able to leave home without, you know. Nico supplies us with some really, really neat swag, and it's great. And, you know, just him sort of being around us and coming to see us whenever we can is pretty awesome. aside from that, there's a lot of people that have helped us out. Like, Tim Montresor would be a person that's helped us out a lot. A lot of the guys, myself and Zap especially, that shoot, the Lux X. He's the guy that put it in our hands. He's the guy responsible for that. And, he'll be missed for sure. Eclipse has been very good to us that as well. They're not a sponsor of ours. They're just people that I know that are great people. Dave Rotunda, I believe he's the head Eclipse tech now. He always fixes whatever nonsense I break. So that's awesome. The guys over at Virtue Bunker Kings treat us pretty well as well. So thank you for that. Kinetic Paintball. What can I say? I've gotten rid of all my other pants. I really have. I have 3 pairs. I bought a pair off of a kid online that was like getting rid of them.
Nice.
I was super stoked. I've never worn them. I don't know how short they are yet, so I got to figure that out. But, I do. It's not because we're sitting here, because if you look at any picture of me for the last 2 years, I literally haven't worn any other pants.
I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it for sure. They're fantastic. I thank my wife because she's hasn't killed me yet in my sleep.
Very surprised.
Yeah,
very surprised.
As am I. I want to thank all the guys, like all these guys who allow me to come out and coach them. I think that that's important. They sponsor my fun, by letting me come out and do that stuff. I know I forgot. Holy shit, Carbon Paintball. Walker is pretty awesome, and he's really taken Tiger as like as their unofficial spokesperson for the.
Oh my God, for
Tiger
real.
10. But on top of that, Walker calls me up and he's run a lot of products by me and he's taken some input from me, which means the world to me. I feel like those guys are doing it right. They're not making too many things too fast. They're trying to stay in their wheelhouse. They have a couple products that are pretty sweet that they're really trying to refine and get them to where they need, they're the sort of leader in the industry. I feel like their packs are better than anything that's been out there in quite some time. I also use the barrel. The carbon barrel is really, really, really nice. Obviously, everybody's on that wave of their underpads. I think they speak for themselves that, it's such a better system than having the old school knee pads on, or old school arm pads even. So, carbon paintball is a big part of what we do. And I think that's about it. I don't know if I missed anybody. Like other people that I gotta thank are like Steve Landa. Steve comes out and takes pictures of me every week, and I freaking love it. I get to talk to him about pizza, which is like my second favorite thing to football. Maybe it's my first favorite thing. I'm not sure. But, Steve and Monty and all the guys who take pictures of us, Rob, you as well, like, coming out to the 10-man field with the Winstons and stuff like that and making sure that everybody's got pictures.
Put me on the roster. If Cup happens, put me on the roster. I'll send you my APA.
I would love to do that. I have that,
just need 1 point.
It's that's all Zap.
I'll talk to Zap. I just need 1 point.
Don't talk to him. Just yell at him. Just be like,
I'll yell at him.
Give him your APPA and say I'm on the roster.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. As soon as it's announced, so Zap, here you go. Here's my APPA.
You can't call it that now. You have to call it APA for the rest of your life.
Okay.
That's your stuff.
Here's my APA. I'll see you on the 10-man field. Make sure somebody has a jersey and a gun for me. I'll make sure that I'm wearing pants.
So the problem last time was that that there was a lot of
so many guys.
Well, not only that, there was a lot on the line because the NRG guys were really trying hard to win.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and like those guys, like Zach's a friend of mine. Obviously, Bobby used to play with us, and like Benedict Bobby. So, we had to beat those guys, and luckily we were able to figure it out at the end.
Nice. But glad it all worked out. And I think we're good.
We got one more sponsor.
Oh, one more sponsor.
All the paintball dogs. They are our favorite. There's so many dogs that come to the events and come to practice. So like shout out to all the paintball dogs and all the guys. And honestly, like guys like the Padres, I thank those guys. We've had a bit of a bumpy past as far as like at practice, but I feel like it's because everybody knows that, they're two good teams playing each other and that sort of thing happens. Padres and the Hurricanes, I'm very thankful for those guys for having the opportunity to play against good teams.
Awesome.
For sure.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for coming on here. Sorry it took a bit longer than we anticipated.
It's all good. I was out hacking up the golf course earlier, so
no worries. But so this concludes an episode of Stories from the Sidelines for the Media Gang. We hope that our viewers and our listeners will tune in for more episodes. We've got some pretty cool people coming up. Oh. Not gonna name drop anybody just yet.
I like it.
But some real trail setters and some anti-establishment people, and it's gonna be an interesting journey, man. It's gonna be
That's
an
great.
interesting journey.
I like it. I dig it.
Awesome.
Thanks for the opportunity to let me just ramble and say nonsense and
100%.
pretty much stray from whatever you asked me and start talking about some other nonsense.
No,
Hey,
not a problem at all.
That's what this is all about, baby.
Thanks, man.
Have a great night. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, you too.